All right. Okay, so thank you for joining our community call. So it's every second Wednesday of the month. So if you want to get notifications from that, best to subscribe to our newsletter. If you don't know where it is, owaspsam.org, and look for the newsletter. So make sure to register for that. If you see this on YouTube, there's probably a subscribe button, and there just push that one and the notification bell, and then you'll also get notifications when new recordings are being put online. So we have actually a couple of topics to cover. This first topic is a new assessment or a new piece of service that we've provided on the SAMM website, and it's called the SAMM practitioners. Now, what's this SAMM practitioners? So actually, what we get a lot in terms of questions and in the info mailbox, but also on Slack channel or through other channels, is we're looking to adopting SAMM to the DO, where I work. Can you recommend a company to help us do this? Now, obviously, we know a lot of companies and organizations who can do that, but we're a volunteer-driven organization. So it was from time to time quite hard to respond to this. So we gave this a good thought and reviewed our options and drafted a way to cover this over the last couple of months. And we came up with SAMM practitioners. Now, what are SAMM practitioners? These are organizations that we know or that have come forward in providing SAMM services, typically providing assessment services, roadmap services, training services, tooling services, and so on. And you can find those organizations when you go to the website owaspsam.org. And let me show you how that works. So if we go to owaspsam.org, you go, which you all know obviously, and you go to community practitioners, then you come to a page which is exactly what I've just stated, and this is a list of some service providers or some practitioners. So this is an initial list where we know, and people that are working there have already contacted us, and we got the permission to list these these organizations. Now, how does this work? Let me continue with the slideshow. First of all, let me make sure let me explain to you that we are selective in a way that we do some basic vetting, and I'll explain you how that works just in a couple of seconds. We do not in any way specifically endorse, recommend, or favor any of them. And so the list that you're seeing there is in alphabetical order. We do add if people are that are working on these organizations are contributors or that they're sponsors of the project, just as a piece of information. But for the rest, they're provided as is. We do not take any responsibility for what they provide as a service. So the full disclaimer really is at that page. Now, how do you get to that page, or what? How do some practitioners get on this list? There are quite a lot of them, and there's a growing number of services organizations that we know. And the process or the way to get on that is that anyone who thinks that they're offering a typical service that is relevant to OWASP-SAMM, obviously, can be requested to get on this list. There's a contact form on the website, or there's an info@owaspsam.org you can send an email to. What you have to provide to us is a link towards the service description of your organization that we can link to, and that's actually the link we provide. And you should at least offer or have a backlink to owaspsam.org on that particular page. So these are the basic criteria. We'll go over this list, I would say, every other month. And if you meet these criteria, you will typically get on that list. If for one reason or another, it would not make sense to have you on the list, or there are questions around the service, obviously, or questions on service of the service providers, obviously don't hesitate to get in touch with us. as we reserve the right to reject or remove any of these practitioners. So that's something you have to understand as well. So we really want to maintain a list of good service providers. It's not easy. Well, it's easy to get on there, but obviously we want to make sure that the services provided there are of good quality. So with that, I hope if you know of service providers that are not on that list yet, obviously it's always good and great to share that to the community at large, because we see that there's a growing number of organizations actually using SAMM. There's also a part of the organizations that call upon external practitioners. So this list would definitely be a good service. So that is really the introduction of the practitioners. Let me pause the recording. So, which brings us to the next topic, the SAMM Core Team Summit. So the last weekend, so last Saturday and Sunday, quite a lot of people from the core team, there were about 9 people, came together in Boston to do a sprint on, I would say, on SAMM itself to progress the project. And quite a lot came out of that. So I have to thank, obviously, all the core team members that are here in the call or that listen to this recording for joining us and for contributing to the project. That is really, really grateful for that. I think we're doing, and you are doing, a great service to our end users. So thank you for that to start with. Now, what did we do? Obviously, we already had a good look at the SAMM survey, which we launched a couple of weeks ago, which is now closed, but I'll provide you with a sneak preview later on. There's quite a couple of things that we're also doing in terms of professionalization, getting better as a project team, which I'll share a couple of slides on. John Ellingsworth, who's joined our call, is going to provide a couple of updates on mapping. Maxime Bala is going to talk a little bit on our benchmarking initiative. And Aram is going to talk a little bit about the guidance that we're adding to the project. There are quite some other outcomes, and we are now grouping and triaging all the different aspects that came out of the summit. And we'll group everything together towards a version 2.1, which will be released in the course of the next couple of months. So that will obviously also be announced then, but lots of the information you get here will also be put together in a formal release. First of all, so we're working with a lot of volunteers, both inside, I would say, what we call the core team, but also, and core team are people typically who are working directly and are dedicating quite some personal time to it. But also a lot of people outside the core team are contributing with input, feedback, and even PRs on the pull requests on our GitHub pages and GitHub repos. So we wanted to put a little bit of like organization around that. So we've grown in terms of organization and in terms of project. A lot of usage, a lot of people are working on it. Also, the repos are getting more and more complex. So we need a way of working. So we're organizing ourselves. We have defined a couple of core roles that are working within the team, but we're definitely also working on using the GitHub, I would say, project management features to tag everything as an issue, a task, and having some basic project management around that, but also to channel everything that we're doing in terms of what are we going to do in the near, the medium, and the far future in terms of road mapping. We already discussed what was on our current roadmap, and we'll be looking at communicating the roadmap over the next couple of months of SAMM 2.1, 2.2, and beyond. But these are all things that we're, I would say, getting better at. Now, in terms of outcomes, what we really, I would say, the most tangible aspect is that we're leveraging the GitHub projects for some project management to give insight to everything actually that we're doing, but also to track and make sure that I would say nothing gets lost. So if you want to provide input or want to help us with comments, input, or questions, GitHub issues is definitely the best way to help us. If you see a typo that can be fixed, also definitely with a pull request that would help us as well. But we will track everything through GitHub project management. It will increase visibility. It'll also be easier for us to package some of the work into what I would say work packages or identifiable pieces of work, so that we can ask help to everyone who wanted or who wants to help to that. What we'll also do is we have a dedicated SAMM user, or I would say an identity as such, that which we'll share on the community Slack channel, so that we're all active within the project and we can reply to anything that you have in the Slack channel. But if you're looking to get in touch really with the project, we will introduce that identity on the community Slack channel, so that you get in touch directly with us as a project. Obviously, we will track what's on the Slack channel, all the people that are on core team, and Bart and myself as well. The thing that we really started to do is come up with a couple of roles, and it was surprisingly already becoming quite complex in terms of what we're doing and how many tasks and how many responsibilities are floating around, which are at this stage auto-magically happening. So putting some organization into that is definitely welcome. This will help us to mature, not only obviously the project, but us in working on the project, and that's hopefully also going to reflect back in the project itself, and help us to become better at collaborating and sharing what we're doing with the community at large. So that with that introduction, one of the key aspects that we're working on is mapping. And John Ellingsworth, you have obviously you're one of the core team members, but maybe can you provide us with some input on that one?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Seba. Thanks everyone for joining. So so at a high level, just in 2019, NIST, the US government NIST, National Institute of Science and Technology, released a standard called the Secure Software Development Framework. As part of that release, they released a mapping to 1.5. So we identified that as a gap, and it was something we wanted to fill with 2.0. So a few of us got together over the course virtually the last couple of months to discuss that. And we started to do a mapping of that. And part of
Is it me, or am I not hearing John?
He fell off the map.
No, not you.
He fell off the map.
Is John still on?
Looks frozen.
Maybe stop recording for a bit.
Yeah. We need to pass it on to another John.
Yeah, we have more Johns. So the next topic is benchmarking. So one of the major tracks that's already in the works for a couple of years, but we're going to get some extra traction on. Maxime and a lot of others of the core team are working on this. Maxime, can you shed a light on this?
I definitely can. So I believe a lot of us knew already how important benchmarking was, and it came up several times in the previous summits. There's been a lot of talk about it since at least 2015 or 16. And it was now again confirmed in the community survey that we did, that it's extremely important to for companies to benchmark themselves against peers. So specifically as an outcome of the survey results, we now made this a core team, a priority for the core team to realize it. So we're really going to put our shoulders behind this and ensure we get a benchmarking off the ground. Next slide, please. So as with anything related with data, trust is key. So garbage in, garbage out. What we want to do is to ensure that we vet the competence of the practitioners who might submit data to the benchmark. For this, we will publish guidance. Also, that we get qualitative data which contains everything we need to know. As we develop the benchmark initiative into something with a recurrent output, we'll provide insight in how we anonymize the data and how we do reporting, how we do analysis. But actually, most important, we need a minimum viable product. We are already sitting on a set of data, and we need to increase this. Next slide, please. So there is an earlier set of data. You can help. This is a call to action. A lot of people have answered on the survey that they are willing to contribute data. Please reach out. We can we'll provide some guidance on how to submit data. We'll goal is to start working with this. As a first deliverable over the course of 2023, we want to deliver a PDF report with our own analysis. There's lots of brainstorming and lots of other things that we want to do once we have a minimum viable product up and running, once we have this PDF report and we solicit feedback. But for now, we're just focusing on gathering data, analyzing data, and getting reports out to the community. Next slide, please. So what's already been done? I mentioned that there was a lot of work already done by the SAMM core team in previous years. So a lot of this work floated around over the different document repositories. So these were all consolidated, and we created a SAMM benchmarking use cases document that's going to drive initiative development. We'll also share this with the community, but for now, this was made by the core team and basically drove future drove updates already on the data model and the way we're going to tackle this project. So that's the benchmarking data model was of course updated. Mentioned we're ready to get data in, and then as Seba already mentioned, we have the practitioners page, and we're hoping to get into a dialogue with the community, get these data sets, and then go from there. Next slide, please.
No.
Yeah. No, that's it. So community feedback, as I mentioned, we are also having a separate benchmark project planning using GitHub project, where we'll divide up the work and give the community insight in what needs to be done. We're probably going to have a call to action once we have the work divvied up. We'll provide guidance for practitioners and for people assessing, which again aligns with a lot of the other initiatives you'll hear about today. We'll document the approach and start requesting data in order to publish the first SAMM benchmark report.
All right, great. Thank you, Maxim, and others who are already working on that, and Brian as well has also done already a lot on that. One other aspect that we get a lot of questions on is besides the core model is how to implement it and tips and tricks and so on. So we're starting to create some guidance on that. Maybe Aram, can you provide us some insight on what we are working on?
Yeah, thanks, Seba. Sure. So one of the questions we have often, and one of the barriers to SAMM, I would say, is it is a high level description. It's a high level model, which is on purpose actually. And people sometimes struggle with how do I do this or how do I get started? So first, if you pick a practice, it is sometimes unclear like how you could do that. And we are creating a guidance framework, I would call it, which consists of two parts. So the first part is something that the core team will start contributing the sort of information per activity, per practice or per stream. And we will open the same mechanism for the general audience, for the community to contribute. And the specifics of the guidance for now are split. So for each stream, we have 4 types of, 4 categories of descriptions that we will create and that we would accept for the community to contribute. And those are OWASP projects and references. So a certain SAMM practice could refer to other OWASP projects and references, or other OWASP project and reference could help you get started and get going. OWASP project and references, mappings to other standards or other models. And John will talk about NIST SSDF mappings, but we envision also the ISO 27001 mappings. So any mappings to other standards that could help you also maybe reflect on those. We will also have the possibility to submit, or we will also add best practices for a certain activity, and also as well external tools and resources that can also help you out. We do plan to open sort of a form that the community can use to provide their input for each stream separately, and for each category that I've mentioned that separately. So if you are, for instance, if you'd like to give a suggestion for a tool that could help with secure build, for instance, you can just use a form and submit that tool as a reference others could use to achieve that maturity level, for instance. And this guidance will be also added to the OWASP-SAMM.org, to the model. So for each activity and each stream, you will have a link which you can use and go and check out these guidance document or documents.
Indeed, and thank you, Aaron, for explaining that. The other way around, also what we're doing is that towards the site is to provide direct inbound, I would say, friendly URLs, so that anyone who wants to reference specific activities in the practice streams that or specific levels in the security practice streams, that you can do that, so that it will also be easy to refer back to the SAMM model, so that it can be an inbound and outbound way of adding guidance to the SAMM model, but also providing links directly towards SAMM. All right. Maybe
by the way, John is back.
Yes, John, are you back?
Yes, I am. Sorry about that. Hopefully my technical difficulties are over.
No worries. You were just explaining the mapping. Go ahead.
Yep, thanks. So I think the last statement I was attempting to make was, you may have already seen the NIST mapping, SAMM mapping to NIST SSDF already. We're filling the gap by updating it to 2.0. And one of the things that I think we wanted to take away as well with this mapping is kind of a process for our team, so that rather than just creating generic crosswalks of one practice or activity to another, we're also providing a little bit more detail about the context or the relationship or the nature of that relationship. So it's more informative. So it becomes a much more informative reference that SAMM users can use, with the idea that SAMM users can use this to help prepare for future compliance. For example, with SSDF practices, we can provide explicit software security activity detail where appropriate. Maybe go to the next slide, Seba, and allow you to kind of develop a phased roadmap for meeting that criteria. As you can see here from the timeline, this is the 2022 timeline. I mentioned that there was a release in 2019, and then there was a subsequent release by NIST later on. February of this year was when they released 1.1 with the mapping. There was, as some of you may have heard, around the software supply chain from NIST, there was an executive memorandum released through secure software development practices. We started the mapping in October. One of the outcomes of the summit was a more granular mapping that we worked on, that we'll continue to work on over the next couple of weeks and months. We are actively engaged with NIST to make sure that what we're doing helps them achieve their goal as well as our own. So we're hopeful that by December we'll have a release of that mapping with the blessing of NIST, as well as the extensive or additional detail that we're looking to add to it, and offer that release. And at the right time, we're going to probably make that available to the community for feedback before the final release. But it's a work in progress. It's a pretty exciting mapping effort, and I think one that will help us set a good foundation for future mappings and crosswalks that we'll be doing.
All right, thank you, John. And so it's great to see that, and it's not an easy task to have some good mapping that we have discovered. But we'll do our utter best to make sure that it's as good as possible.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So indeed, we've covered these. Now, a couple of other aspects that are definitely worthwhile to mention as outcomes. First, I wanted to mention that if you haven't seen that, there is a PDF version of our project OWASP SAMM. You just go to the homepage and you'll see the View SAMM PDF. Now, creating a PDF out of our source YAML files is something we thought was very easy to do. We probably release 1 month after releasing SAMM 2.0. For you who don't know, we released SAMM 2.0 in January 2020. So it took us a little bit more time, but with the help of Aram's team, the people at Codific, we were able to speed it up over the last couple of months. And so we were able to create that PDF already 2 months ago or 1 month ago, and I would say I released it then. But the major, I would say, trick, or the major, I would say, challenge there was really how to generate that PDF in a way that it was usable and fast to generate. Now, Codific was very instrumental in doing that, and they generously donated the PDF generator functionality to our project, for which we are very thankful. It's a new repo on the OWASP SAMM, I would say, organization. And we look forward to having or to using that a lot in the near and I would say the medium future to automatically generate PDF versions of the upcoming releases. So again, thank you there for doing that. Other aspects that we have done is really looking at redesigning the flows around translations. A lot of effort have already been put into translating some of the SAMM content. Now it has not been with, I would say, splitting up the content in different repos. It proved to be hard to capture that. So there's a revised approach that we came up with during the summit, and Bart is also working on that together with the help of some others, which in the next couple of weeks or months will be, I would say, up and running. We've also, together with John Kennedy, gone over, I would say, marketing outcomes, like how many people are actually visiting the website, how can we improve the usability of our functionality and the products and so on. I will share one slide with you later on that. And we have also discussed a question that came up a lot when you do a review of or do an assessment of your SAMM maturity for your organization, your business unit, your team, or your product. Sometimes you come into a situation which should be really rare, and we'll, I would say, come up with our position and describe that in the next couple of weeks as well, that you come into a situation that particular question is not applicable in your situation. Now, not applicable is not in a drop-down of the current tools. It's not an option. We will see how we can handle that. We had a good discussion. I think the outcome will be clear. It will, in the end, it will be possible to do it, but it should be very rare and something of an exception. And we'll make sure that it's also an exception in any tooling out there. Just to make sure that anyone who does a SAMM assessment can still contributed to the benchmark, and also that you can still compare yourself to the overall results as well. But anyway, if you think not applicable is something that you want to do, this is an open source project, so you can still like use the product in any way you see fit. So obviously you are free to fork and change some whenever you think that would be possible or suitable for your organization. So that is a little bit of an overview of what we did. I also wanted to share with you one piece of information. It's just that we've seen a growth in some usage a lot, and that's also being reflected in the usage of the website. And so our main channel, I would say, to share the model is through the website. And we see a growth of, I would say, monthly users. So there's more than 7,000 people that are actually looking at the website on a monthly basis. And over the last 9 to 10 months, we've had more than 350 page views. So that's really high, obviously. So we're really glad that SAMM is being used and being noticed. And so I just wanted to share that with you. As a measure of, I would not say as a measure of success, but at least as a measure of usage. So that's one of the metrics that I think is useful to share, at least to have an idea how SAMM is being used. So that's really it. What I wanted to explain about the outcome. So let me. So that with that we come to the last part of the community call, and that's the SAMM survey. So we launched the survey a couple of weeks ago to solicit feedback and input for the current SAMM community. So with that, this is a sneak preview. I can share a couple of the data with it, but it has proved to be really valuable. We've received quite some responses. So actually 156 people participated in the survey, which is huge. And we have some preliminary results here, but we'll still need some time to fully analyze that, make sure that we can provide you with some feedback and also some extra material based on I would say, the aggregated data. And given, I would say, the limited amount of time that we still have today, we'll dedicate the next community call on this. But with that, let me share with you some of the interesting data that we've seen. So first of all, is that geographically, the majority of the responses actually came from Europe, but also from other parts of the world. We see that actually, I would say, most of the geographic areas have people and organizations that use SAMM. So there's quite some users there. But that was one interesting input. Another thing is that we've asked for how many years of experience do you have with SAMM. Now what we see is that there are quite some experienced participants that have joined the survey, which is great because that adds really to the value of the respondents and the survey results as such. So nearly half have 3 or more years of experience with OWASP SAMM. But what is also interesting is that more than half have only 0 to 2 years. So we have lots of new organizations and new people that are actually using SAMM in their organization, which also reflects what we see, and is a data point that supports, I would say, a view that I see a lot of people are actually using SAMM more and more. Now, what is also reflecting that is the organization size. So you see that there's quite some smaller organizations using SAMM, which is perfectly possible. So there are nearly, I would say, more than 1/3 or 36% are. So you could fill in more than one result, because some of them, our respondents, were SAMM practitioners. So they have done that for various kind of organizations, but A major part are smaller organizations, so less than 99. I would say the majority are medium-sized organizations, at least like what we regard as medium-sized. But then also quite some bigger organizations, even organizations that have more than 100,000 employees, have also responded to this. So it's a good, I would say, cross-cutting results of different kind of organizations from small to big, which is quite interesting. And I wanted to share the last piece of, I would say, or the last sneak preview. We had one question in there is, would you be willing to contribute data to the benchmark? And now I'm short-circuiting to the previous part. And over 100 respondents or participants would be willing to share data. So and that's very promising. And we'll reach out to everyone, obviously, for the next couple of weeks and months to actually do that and to provide you with a way to share data to contribute to the first benchmark. And so what Maxime already explained, it's very promising that a lot of organizations and people are willing to share. Some of them will not, and I can perfectly understand that. And some will maybe do that, but probably under some conditions. So we'll research on how we can cater for that. Now, there was also a question on how could SAMM be improved? And so I would say some very preliminary draft suggestions that we got or that we filtered out of that is that it does really make sense or to provide some specific SAMM guidance or even profiles or some example roadmaps for teams and or products besides organizations and line of business. The mappings, I think in terms of mappings, SSDF was mentioned, but there was also quite some ask for mapping or combining some with ISO 27001, the NIST 853, I would say, guidance, and NIST CSF. So besides SSDF, we will also be working on the other mappings as well. Obviously, also BSIM was mentioned in there. It's also something that we're going to do. So map it to the latest version of BSIM as well. And then benchmark. I think a lot of people asked for benchmark. Also, there was a specific question in there, which Maxime already covered. I would say practically 2/3 of the respondents said that they would really need it and or would really like to compare with their peers. And then also a question on guidance. So we've really focused on working on that, and we're I would say obviously going to add specific guidance to the benchmark over the next couple of weeks, months, and years, I would say. But that's probably all we can share today. If you want to know more, it's a little bit of a cliffhanger here. You'll have to rejoin us next month. We might already post some details in a blog post. So that's it, really, in terms of where we are with the survey. If you want to get in touch with us, make sure to join us on our Slack channel. So all the instructions on how to do that are on our website. And to really get, I would say, updates, I would say register yourself on newsletter. There is no spam on there. It's always like we don't release a lot, but we really want to try to keep it as useful as possible. So make sure to register for our newsletter. And with that, I can only thank you for being here. And again, thank you for the people that have helped us in realizing where we are right now.
Thank you very much.
All right. Can I stop the recording? Okay. And there we are.